It's time for Twig. This week at Google, Jeff Jarvis has a week off. Mike Elgan stands in. Great to have him back, along with Stacey Higginbotham. The latest cloud news this week. We'll talk about Google's Tango, Larry Page's flying cars, and a victory for net neutrality. Or is it? It's all coming up next on Twig.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for This Week in Google is provided by Cachefly. CACHEFLY.com. This is Twig, episode 357, recorded Wednesday, June 15th, 2016. Check your roof for dents. This Week in Google is brought to you by Atlassian. Unleash your team's potential with collaborative software tools like HipChat and Jira that will let you work and communicate better together. Visit Atlassian.com to learn more. And by the Ring Video Doorbell. With Ring, you can see and talk to anyone at your door from anywhere in the world using your smartphone. It's like caller ID for your house. Go to ring.com/twig and get $50 off the Ring of Security kit with their limited time offer. And by Tracker. Tracker makes losing things a thing of the past. Pair Tracker to your smartphone, attach it to any item, and find its precise location with the tap of a button. Visit thetracker.com right now and enter promo code TWIG for 30% off your entire order. It's time for Twig. This Week in Google, the show where we cover the latest from Google, Twitter, Facebook, the cloud. Stacey Higginbotham is here, as she has been now for the last few weeks, and I was checking in with you, Stacey. You still like doing the show?
I do.
I
realized I need to get on your IRC channel. I need to get a name. I am on chat, but
oh, that's good.
I was like, oh, maybe.
As soon as you have a name, register it, and then tell the mods, and then that way you will be the only. Whatever, Stacey on IoT is always good. You could do that. That's what your
there we go. I am the only
is.
Stacey on IoT.
Yeah, it always looks like on Riot, like you're rioting.
Well, that's better than idiot, which is what other people have told me. So I'll take it.
No, she's rioting. Hey, look who else is here from E3 of all things. Mike Elgan is back in the country.
That's right. The United States of America.
The U.S. Do you have to come back like a certain number of days a year or something?
Not really. I have to leave other countries because of various requirements, one of which is Schengen in Europe, where 3 months in any of those countries, you have to leave all of those countries. That's a pain. U.S. doesn't really care about that stuff. You can go abroad for 2 years, and they don't bat an eye.
Yeah, because as long as they get your taxes, they don't really care about
That's right. That's exactly right.
There's no issue on residency. Just keep paying us taxes. That's all we care about.
That's right.
Anyway, welcome back. Your first time at E3.
A lot of people live abroad. That's right. I'm not a big gamer guy, but I was in LA. I'm already planning to be in LA, and I thought I'd check out the show. It was a lot of fun. And of course, virtual reality is just the hottest thing there, just about. For the attendees, I think some of the games are the hotly anticipated games are important. But for me, it's all the VR. It's, you always hear that VR is not going to be just a gamer thing. Well, don't tell the E3 people, because they're doing some really amazing things with VR there.
I think in some ways, really gaming is where VR shines the best. We haven't yet got the technology to do augmented reality, which would be the more useful for business and for user interface. And, I don't know if immersive is that interesting unless you're interactively engaged, as in a game. So I think it really is for gaming. It's okay.
Maybe good for simulations in education, but yeah.
Have you seen anybody do that yet?
Simulations?
Yeah.
The Air Force? No.
The Air Force, you're right. Actually, good point. Okay, I take it back.
I read about a medical service, but I can't. I'll look for it and see if I can find it. Doing like doctor training in VR.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that one big application that people aren't prepared for in VR is socializing, but that would require connection. And if Skype's any indication of how good the connections are going to be, then never mind.
I have the people who have tried, because you can't really do it right now, but I want to say that Oculus has a social network where this is coming someday, where you can be in the same space with another Oculus Rift user. And the people who've tried that say it's really cool, like throwing a ball back and forth.
Right. Well, one thing I do definitely want to say about the general realm of VR, augmented reality, and so on, and I was heavily persuaded by Kevin Kelly on this point, which is that up until now, from the dawn of the computing revolution until now, computing and then later the internet has all been about information. And we're entering into this new long era where computers and the internet are all about experiences instead of information. It's a subtle difference, but it's a big one. And VR is going to have a huge impact on that. For example, we're always talking about, do you have to travel for business? Do you travel to go to a trade show or whatever? Well, you often do, and because you want the experience of meeting face to face, the experience of being there in real life. And increasingly, the internet and VR and augmented reality will be delivering experiences of all kinds, not just games, not just business meetings, but any kind of experience you want to have. And it will get to the point where information is less important and experiences are far more important. I thought that was a really interesting point by Kevin Kelly.
He's usually got a pretty good handle on all this stuff.
I don't know. I'm flashing back to Second Life and the excitement we had about telecommuting, yet we still haven't changed our ways very much. So I think there are definitely benefits for this, but I don't know if we're going to suddenly stop meeting people face to face for professional purposes or to sell things.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. While I got really excited when we got our Oculus Rift and played with it a lot, and then the Vive and played with it a lot, I noticed that the same thing is happening to me with VR that has happened with many other technologies that seemed cool and didn't end up getting traction. And I'd include Google Glass in this. I'm not convinced that VR is going to be as big as everybody seems to think. I think, for one thing, you spend a lot of time in it, like more than half an hour. You really get some negative effects, not just nausea, but disorientation afterwards and things. Weird things happen. You feel weird. It isn't I think it's not fun for the long haul. It's kind of like 3D movies. That it's cool at first, and then, but doesn't. After 2 hours, you kind of wish you hadn't.
Well, a couple of things on that, Leo. I think one of them is those are the problems that remain to be solved from a technology perspective. There are many potential ways to increase the comfort level, decrease the disorientation, decrease the nausea, and all that kind of stuff. And of course, companies are working on it. The other one is that there's a whole world of more casual, easier to swallow kinds of realities, especially augmented reality of the kind that Magic Leap and HoloLens and others are working on. And this is I think this has a huge place. And we're already seeing it sort of, with Google's Project Tango, which just released a series of videos demonstrating a very palatable form of augmented reality, of course, which is where you're looking at a smartphone screen, in the case of Tango, potentially, eventually a tablet. But that's a very friendly form of readjusted reality, where you see things in the camera lens that you don't actually see in real life. And you can do that for hours without any disorientation.
Tango, yeah, because it's... Okay, both you and Stacey, if you believe in Tango, you're going to have to convince me on the... Here's some of the video. This is a Tango, new kind of phone. This is the new Lenovo phone. It looks to me very much like augmented reality. We had augmented reality browsers on Android years ago.
Yeah.
And they never went much anywhere. This is, obviously, it's an advertisement, as you're seeing. A kid's got what I think is cool. He has set up dominoes, one of those big domino Rube Goldberg machines, and it's so cool. And now there's a kid going to a museum, but for some reason during all this, he's not in the light. He's carrying a flashlight with him. I'm not sure.
These videos are not very good.
Okay, thank you. Now he's at school.
Very well done. They don't really show.
And he's in the gym, and he's shining a flashlight on a science project. And I guess the idea. Okay, let me get out of this one, because this doesn't sell you. All right, finally he's using Tango. So now instead of looking at a dinosaur, he's looking at the dinosaur through a phone that he's holding up, or he's looking at his dominoes through a phone. Oh, I didn't even have to build it. Isn't that great? He could just walk down the stairs and pretend he built it. It feels like not an improved
it's a terrible video. And I think, the benefit of Tango, we realize when artificial intelligence is applied, meaning that the imagery will identify the objects that it's scanning as they're scanning. So instead of a surface that drops off at the edge, that's a table.
Right. Kind of like the HoloLens.
The table, there's an under the, exactly.
Yeah.
So the augmented reality apps that we've had so far will project something that appears to be there, but it doesn't know what it's projecting upon. So with Project Tango, something can not only sit on the table, but go behind the table.
I mean, Stacey, wouldn't you prefer that your kid builds the dominoes or looks at the...
I would, although, so AR, I think it has certain applications. I hate holding up a phone in front of me. Like, the less I need to phone to mediate my world, the better. But, you know, again, I've seen stuff for, like, you think about it in industrial, where you're like looking at like a complex part and you're showing this and saying, oh, hey, this is what these are. This is the problem. And you can see how to fix it.
Well, here's an example. This is another one of the ads. This is a mom and daughter planning her new bedroom.
Oh, yeah. And that was, design is always a fun one.
So here's, I mean, it's fun. And I guess if you're planning a bedroom, to be able to see the bed, see the wall color, see the paint.
I think it's a really cool commercial kind of application. Building IKEA furniture.
Yeah.
Planning your bedroom.
I really don't want to see kids doing this with their dominoes, though. I mean, this is like, and this dad, by the way, this dad is annoying. This is like creepy dad. Dad, get off your phone. Do your kids do this to you, Stacey, or your husband? Get off the phone and pay attention. We're in the real world.
No.
No?
Although, you know what this is like?
My kids
I'm
did.
like, nope.
My kids used to do that all the time. Get off your BlackBerry, Dad.
Did you ever play any of those games that came with the Sphero?
Yeah. Again.
Yeah, this is exactly like that.
Yeah. For about a minute.
Right. Well, no, I'm not saying, again, the place where this is most useful is industrial, where you could send someone who's not well trained in something to like fix something.
Well, I mean, the other thing is that everything that's happening on a smartphone screen, I mean, you're perceiving that, you know, follow Moore's law into the future 5 years, and this is going to be in not Google Glass type of clunky, dorky glasses, but in glasses that look like regular glasses. I think that within 5 years, it'll be simply an option when you go to the optometrist's office or go to Sunglasses Hut to get the smart version, and they can drip into your eyeballs whatever it is you want to see. And once you can wear glasses that look like socially acceptable glasses, normal glasses, and into those glasses you can beam something like HoloLens, where you see things that aren't there. Another word for that is insanity. But anyway, that's going to be amazing, because you'll be, you know, it'll be super sci-fi-ish. You know, it'll be like, you know, Obi-Wan, your only hope, and you'll see it. Nobody else will see or hear it. And I think that will be very powerful. It's a visual form of information that is not just words, not just static pictures, but objects that appear in the 3D space that you're inhabiting.
You were joking about insanity, Mike, but actually that's one of the theories about why people are nauseated when they use VR is because of a difference between the focal length and where your eyes are converging. In other words, your focusing muscles are saying something 6 feet away. Your eyes are converging at something just a few inches away. And that disconnect tells our primitive mind something's seriously wrong. Probably you ate some bad mushrooms and throw up now. And that's a theory, of course, but that's the theory behind VR nausea, is that there is a kind of insanity. Your mind says, this is not right. Something's seriously wrong here. And overcoming that is not a matter of improving frame rate or reducing latency. It's kind of biological. So that's the other thing. The jury's still out on that one as well.
Right.
I think, Mike, you might be living in the Matrix in 5 years, and I'm not sure I want to join you.
See, now that I would do. See, you said Second Life. If you could jack in and be in that, then I might do that. Wouldn't you want to do that, Stacey?
No, anything involving actual literal jacking in, I'm a little concerned with.
Okay.
I'm drawing the line.
Okay.
Well, the good news is that Elon Musk says we're already there. We're already living in a simulation. So this would be a simulation inside the simulation.
I think Elon ate some of those mushrooms.
Yeah.
So, Stacey, this doesn't appeal to you particularly, or it does?
Well, I don't think I think it's kind of crazy talk from a tech perspective, because, I mean, yes, things will get smaller, but the type of thing you're talking about, we have to do much more to, radios and antennas, because this has to be connected to something, right? So we have to get those smaller. We have to make them biologically compatible with possibly our eyeballs. We're talking about screens, so we've got to figure out like screen size and how to do that. And I'm not saying we won't ever get there, but I feel like, Mike, you're being really optimistic.
Thank you. No, I'm just all I'm really doing is just if you know the way that William Gibson always predicted so accurately the future back in the 80s was he would read these obscure trade journals and find out where everything was going, and he would see where all those things. If you combine the future of everything, you get a pretty accurate future. And I think that the fact is that people love. I'm wearing Bluetooth headphones a lot these days, and I've been trying to channel my sort of notifications and things like that to audio so I can hear it. And just walking around, having this world, the world of the internet and the computer and the communication, all that kind of stuff, privately whispering in my ear all the time. I think people are going to want that visually. And if you follow Moore's law, we're certainly going to have the hardware and the software.
Moore's law hit a wall.
Maybe not. By the way, there's a story that
they're getting better. With
gallium arsenide doping, we may be able to crack that wall yet again.
So if we want to talk about doping, I can go there. I'm an old chip reporter, but I don't think we really want to.
I'm going to have to push that on the stack because there's about 3 different things coming up here for me now that I do want to talk about. So let me say this, that it is one thing for William Gibson. He's a storyteller, so it's a wonderful thing for him to be able to tell stories that are credible, futuristic stories. But as a journalist, I always felt like my job was to try these, as a tech journalist or tech pundit, my job was to try these new technologies and really try to suss out which ones were worth paying more attention to and which ones were just gimmicks. And I mean, let's be honest, the odds are that most of them are gimmicks. A lot of this stuff just doesn't stick. And I feel like while I'd love to be a cheerleader, that's not exactly my job. My job is to kind of be a little brutal and say, you know, this isn't something that's going anywhere, or this is something that's going. And I admit I'm torn on VR. I was very excited when I first started using it.
Yeah.
But I'm concerned that there are some indicators it may not be all that. I think augmented reality is pretty cool. And that's what you're describing, Mike, when you go and you get special glasses. Or even augmented reality doesn't have to be visual. It's what you're talking about when you're using your Bluetooth headset.
That's right.
Or when you have the mushrooms.
Or not that there's anything wrong with mushrooms, but I just wouldn't want to wear them all day.
And the other thing that is interesting about virtual reality when you talk about multimedia, a word that nobody has said for 20 years, is the coming world of earbuds that let you fine-tune exactly what you hear and exactly what you don't hear. And those will be not only piping in music and podcasts and so on, but they'll also be filtering out this crying baby and turning up the information you want to hear. And that's going to be really, really cool.
Well, to some extent, I'm already doing that with my hearing aids. You know, I got those Starkey Halo hearing aids, and it does some really, nowadays hearing aids are not just amplifiers. That's why you don't hear the grandpa's ringing hearing aid anymore, because really what they are is DSPs, and they do a lot of processing, including trying to figure out where the sound's coming from and using the stereo earphones to give you more directional information, to know where you're looking and to make that guy talk louder than the guy over here. Lots of really interesting stuff. I just got a upgrade notice from my audiologist. He says we've got new cones we're going to put in that make music sound better. And by the way, one of the things I do with my hearing aids is I stealthily walk down the street and listen to my book, because you can't tell that I'm listening to a book in my hearing aids and getting notifications and all that stuff, right?
That's why hearing aids are going to be obsolete, because everyone will already have them by the time they're old enough to wear hearing aids.
They're going to be in-ear devices of some kind,
Near connections to the internet.
Yeah. Well, and I think that is, by the way, one solution to the nausea problem and other things, is that it doesn't have to be visual. It can be auditory. And I think you made a great point, Mike. In fact, really a lot of what Google Glass was auditory as much as visual, yes?
Yeah. There's also a hybrid of virtual and augmented reality that would require a Project Tango type of technology. And that is that, everything you see is fake. It's monsters and alien landscapes and so on, but it matches the surfaces of the actual place where you are. So when you're looking around and you're walking around, or you're not walking around or whatever, it makes sense with exactly what you're doing and so on. And that's something that, of course, they've demonstrated with the HoloLens. So one of the first demonstrations was this landscape of Mars. Well, there was really a ground there. It just wasn't a Martian landscape.
Right. I think it could be, HoloLens really could be very interesting, but it's also, I believe, several years off.
Yes, yeah.
Because HoloLens, the whole PC and the battery and everything are in the band. So you are truly untethered.
Yeah.
You saw I don't know, did you see at E3 any of these goofy backpack PCs designed for using with the Oculus Rift so you could walk around?
I didn't, but there was a lot of very controlled environments for the VR, partly because they didn't want people wandering into another, cosplayer user with a sword or whatever. But it was very controlled environments. And I thought, well, we're not, you can't just strap people into these things yet and have it be a seamless experience.
So, hold on, honey, I'm going into my VR pod.
Yes.
Well, I mean, this gives new meaning to the man cave.
Yeah. Right.
Or
it can be an actual cave.
The lady. Well, I'm not going to say.
Do you have a lady cave?
That's a different cave. Yeah.
Wait a minute. Okay, rewind.
I stopped before I said
it.
From a cultural perspective, what's interesting to me is that, people like us have been talking about the problems and pitfalls and potential of virtual reality for a long time, but Ready Player One is going to come out as a movie. It's a Steven Spielberg movie. It is. And in fact, the guy from, Bachman from Silicon Valley has already signed on to play a troll in that movie. It's probably going to be a fantastic movie. It'll probably be a blockbuster, and it'll get everybody talking about what happens when people abandon the real world for the virtual one. And I'm super concerned about this because it clearly, I'm concerned about people who live in horrible places that want to live in wonderful places, and they'll just vanish into virtual reality. I think that'll happen for some minority of people. Kind of already happens with video games, but in Ready Player One, it's a dystopian future where, because everybody's in virtual reality, the real world goes to hell, and the more the real world goes to hell, the more people want to vanish into virtual reality.
Sounds like the presidential election of 2016.
Exactly. Well, imagine if we could just tune it all out and live in a world where some of these candidates didn't exist.
It's interesting. Our 13-year-old, when I was 13, it was 1968 Nixon versus Humphrey.
Yeah, that was fraught with optimism.
And I was fascinated and really engaged. I remember sitting through the contested Democratic election, and literally writing down delegate votes to keep track of this. I was fascinated. Then I fast forward to our 13-year-old who puts his fingers in the ears if there's any politics. It's like, and I don't blame him. It's like I think at this point people want to put a hood over their heads and not even talk about it or think about it. We're partly because we're overloaded, right? We have media overload.
Right.
But also partly because the reality is so real. It's a little too real.
Yeah.
At this point. You have a 9-year-old, almost 10, Stacey.
Yes. And she actually understands, well, of course she understands the election, but she has thoughts and opinions. And
Oh, good.
Her entire school, she goes to it's a school modeled after the International School in Mexico City.
Oh, neat.
So they are pretty anti-Trump as a school. Just because.
Well, now, if she were pro-Trump, would she be ostracized?
She has a friend who's pro-Trump, and
because you are in Texas, after all.
I am. I'm in Austin, though.
Yeah, the People's Republic of Austin.
They have a anti-Trump dance, and her friend doesn't do the dance, but that's about the extent of the ostracization.
It'd be hard, especially at that age when you really your peer group is everything. You really want to be accepted.
They're one of those warm and fuzzy schools. Everyone's still accepted.
It's all okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's take a break. We're going to come back. We are talking about technologies that, the mainstream media goes, oh, this is the next big thing. And then those of us who have been covering tech for a while might have other thoughts. Larry Page's secret flying car factories. Coming up next. But first, a word from our sponsor, Atlassian.com. We use Atlassian. Now, this is reality. Atlassian gives you a window into exactly how your team is doing, what they're working on, how far along they are in every different part of a project. Atlassian is a series of tools, a number of tools that let you work better together, or as they say, team up to create what's next. We'll start with Jira, which many people have first experienced kind of as an agile Kanban board, a way of keeping track of all the different projects, managing all the different tasks. We used Jira when we were designing our website. The company out of Austin, Four Kitchens, that did it, used Jira for us to keep track with what they're doing, for us to create our user stories so that they could work on the projects. And it really was fantastic. I mean, and now we continue to use it for our maintenance contract, so we can say, here's something we want you to work on. This is next. This is next. Jira is the #1 software development tool used by Agile teams to assign, track, and manage tasks for any project, and no matter how complex. And if you've been on a development team and you've not used Jira, you've got to try it, because I think you'll see how incredible it is for getting things done. There's also Confluence, which we use. I didn't know this, but we use Confluence in the TWIT. Our engineering team uses it to document equipment and work processes, to keep track of where things are in the process. Confluence will let you create and share content, organize results, bring team members up to speed. We also use HipChat, and I don't know if I want to show you our HipChat because it's so active. And we use HipChat for everything, to book guests, to plan shows. Oops, I don't have to create an account. I have an account. For the new studio, we're keeping track of it. And Russell and our sysadmins use HipChat because they've integrated into HipChat all of the tools like Panopta that they use to keep an eye on servers and uptime and all of this stuff. The integrations are incredible in HipChat. Everything, Bitbucket, GitHub, Asana, Google Hangouts, Zendesk, 150 integrations with more coming all the time. So you can keep track of what's going on in what looks like an instant messenger, but also allows you video and chat and just everything you'd ever want. It's incredible. Of course, HipChat works right with Jira and Confluence and Bitbucket, which is their testing and review and managing code in real-time tool. Lots of great stuff. Here's the deal. Go to Atlassian.com and find out more about all the great tools that will help your team work together, helping teams everywhere team up to create what's next. Atlassian.com. We use it and we love it. Stacey Higginbotham is here from Stacey on IoT.com. That's her website, and of course the great podcast she does with friend Kevin Toffel, the IoT podcast. She's the king or queen of IoT. It's always nice to have you. And you said your doorbell may ring at any time, and you will leap up and go to the UPS guy. Because what are you waiting for? Something from underwear?
Under Armour. Armour.
Okay.
It's their fitness. It's their health box. They had a smoking deal on it.
Oh, is it like, can you wear like Under Armour and it will tell you how your heart rate is and all that stuff kind of thing?
It's 3 things. It's a scale. It's a connected heart rate monitor, the strap kind, and a fitness band. And if you want, they also have shoes that work with this. And the shoes you just run in. That's it.
That's nice.
So it is. You don't have to charge them or anything.
HTC works with them on that.
Yes, they do.
Really, it's just everywhere now. You can't exercise alone anymore. They bought all my favorite apps. They bought MyFitnessPal. They use that.
I will say I love their apps. Map My Run, Map My Fitness,
Map My Ride. Yeah.
MyFitnessPal with all the food tracking. So Alexa, I said her name. Sorry. The Echo has a food tracking.
Yeah, have you tried that? I'm really excited about that.
I am too, but I have not tried it because I didn't want to set up an account and then I forgot about it for like 2 days.
Okay, so I'm going to try it tonight. Because food logging is the single most, for me, the best way for me to lose weight, to be more healthy. I'm already exercising a lot, and I do keep track of it. I have my Apple Watch on today, but I use a Fitbit and other things. But it's food tracking, and it's such a pain in the butt. If I could get that to work with the Echo, I would be because I'm usually sitting next to the Echo when I'm eating.
I'm waiting for, there's an app called Meal Snap. I don't know why I showed my phone.
Because you could take a picture of your food,
right? A picture of it. Yeah, and it would estimate how many calories were in it. And that kind of would arrive. But with AI where it is and the ability to visualize food, I'm like, why do we not have that? It wouldn't be as accurate, but I'm okay with that. I just need a general,
Echo.
I know I should.
I'm eating something. It's about the size of my fist. It's blue-green, and it smells like prunes. Oh, you're eating I don't know what.
I'm like, wow, I don't think I would eat that.
Yes, Echo would say, stop eating that, whatever it is.
Dial 911.
I will dial 911 for you if you don't stop. Mike Elgan is also here. He is a digital nomad. That's the name of his website. He's traveling the world, and right now his travels have brought him to the exotic destination of Los Angeles, California.
That's right. And yep, and then I'll be in the U.S. for about a month, and then we're taking off again. But yeah, it's very exciting to be in L.A. I'm a big foodie, Leo. You are too, and L.A. is such a big food town now. It's just amazing. We went to a restaurant last night called Bestia, something like that.
What the heck is that?
It's a great restaurant in downtown. It's in a really bad neighborhood, but it's worth risking it.
So the website, what is the website for? It's Becoming Nomad, right?
BecomingNomad.com. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a newsletter you can sign up for if you like. It's free, and I also have a Twitter account, Becoming Nomad.
I'm always so jealous because this is something I've always wanted to do, is to kick off the traces and go see the world. Oh man, look at this body surfing at Tulum. You've got a life. I'm so jealous.
It's great. I love the lifestyle. Yeah. In fact, many of us, people who can work from home. If you can work from home, you can work from Rome. So, mobile technology enables you to live anywhere. And I would like to see more people doing it if they can and if they want to.
Neat. And if you follow Mike on Instagram, you'll be tortured with his food pictures. Yeah. Facebook, wherever. Is it Facebook or Instagram? I know I see your pictures all the time.
It's probably I do both, but it's probably mostly Facebook. I post a lot more on Facebook.
And people can follow you without friending you?
They can, yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
when I say that. I
Absolutely.
do note a very strange picture of you on your Facebook announcing your appearance. It's apparently you and Larry Page wearing your Google Glass, and for some reason your face is painted with the American flag.
Yeah, I was looking for an arresting image for Facebook. That was actually a selfie that Larry Page himself took using my camera. I was trying to take a selfie with my gigantic DSLR, and he said, "No, here's how you do it." And he grabbed the camera and
That's great.
Held it upside down. And that American flag was for some Google Plus thing from like 4 years ago.
It was a filter.
July or something. Yeah. It was
good. That's a relief.
I'm not actually a face paint.
I was like, wow, you met Larry Page with your face painted like that. That's
That would be so humiliating. Or maybe not. I don't know. Can we've actually dropped Mike's video, and the audio is working perfectly, so that's fine, and that's really all we really need. But I think we should use this image of Mike.
Yeah, especially if we're going to talk about the flying cars. We got both people.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So Lisa, my wife, came to me a couple of days ago and said, "This is so exciting. Larry Page is going to build flying cars." And I said, "Exciting? That's a terrifying thought. Do you really want everybody and their brother flying around?" So what's the story with flying cars?
Stacey, if you don't mind, I wrote a column on this, and I'd love.
My frame of reference is the Jetsons and drones. So
yeah,
go right ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also the Flying DeLorean in Back to the Future 2, and we've got a million of them, And so first, for people who are listening to this show, let me describe the vehicle, because we've known about the vehicle and the company for a little while, sketchy information, but we've just learned that it's, in fact, Larry Page is the sole owner of this.
Oh, it's not just he's invested in the competitor, right?
Yeah, right. There's Kitty Hawk is another company that's invested in, and that company, the president of that company is the guy who launched the self-driving car initiative, Sebastian Thrun at Google. Oh. But the one that Larry Page owns outright is really fascinating. The Zero airplane. So imagine an airplane fuselage, just the part where you sit, where the motor is, and where the wheels are. And then on that, on the very back and top, there's a wing that curves down in the back. And in the very, very front, there's another wing that's on the bottom. And then there's a sort of two upside-down pontoons on either side, and there are 4 propellers on each side that are slightly at different angles, and 2 propellers in the back providing forward thrust.
This looks like something you would see in a Tom Swift novel from 1936.
Yes.
As the future.
But Larry Page, and I did a lot of research on this, and I hate to say it because I always often come across as a Google fanboy, but Larry Page has the best so-called flying car out there. And then here's why.
Yeah, he's got a G6. That's the best flying car, a private jet.
Right. These little propellers are part of what makes this possible, and the other part is self-flying. So start with the propellers.
I think that's key, by the way, the self-flying technologies. Otherwise, you've got people flying into each other above your head.
They will never let you control an airplane in your neighborhood. That is never going to happen. No. But so these propellers, it's like an electric car, or a Tesla. Each of these propellers has its own motor and its own controller. So if one of them gets hit by a bird or one of them goes out for some reason, the plane will keep flying. If 2 or 3 of them go out, the plane will keep flying. It's not depending on one engine or one motor or one propeller.
Very reliable, would be a very high priority for something like this if there's hundreds above me.
Exactly. And one of the most wonderful things about this is he's shooting for the mass market. So he's really shooting for an affordable airplane that will essentially be, it'll cost as much as a pretty high-end car.
Like a Tesla, like 130, 150, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could even, so here's the thing that a lot of engineers are saying, a lot of people who really know what they're talking about are saying, it's actually easier to do a self-flying airplane than it is to do a self-driving car. There are less things to crash into. You don't have to stay on the road. You don't have to identify bicyclists. You don't have to do all this. You need to avoid, stay in the airspace, avoid the telephone poles. It's a much simpler problem. The biggest part of the problem, as is often the case with almost any technology, is the battery situation. And they're heavy, and it's particularly problematic in an airplane. But I have a personal problem with the concept of the flying car. People think that their car will fly, the thing that they drive around will fly. That will never happen. This is an airplane. You can't drive this like a car.
In fact, that's the title
like
of your
drone.
Yeah, it does look like a drone, doesn't it?
Exactly. And of course, there's some other, there are a bunch of companies that have tried to do flying cars. They already exist. There's the PAL V, the Sky Car, the Aeromobile 3.0, the Maverick LSA, the Icon A5, Switchblade, the Lithium Jet, the Velociraptor, Pegasus, Skyrunner, Volante. I mean, there are a bunch of these. One of the coolest ones is the Terrafugia, or I don't know how to say it, TFX, which is a really cool device. But the ones that will matter are going to be self-driving. And the other thing is just like self-driving cars. I don't think we'll care about owning them. We may be in 10 or 15 years be able to summon one to land on our lawn and take us to dinner or whatever, but we won't necessarily want to own them, and they will definitely be self-driving.
They have to
So
be.
Mike, help me out here.
Yeah.
Is this for like a family? Is this for one person? How do you see this being used? And wouldn't we just, it's kind of like building new highways or new roads where they just get clogged because there's more avenues. I mean, I know that we feel like the air above us is infinite, but it's not. So I'm just trying to think about why it's cool, but why do I need or want this?
What? Are you crazy?
No, I'm not. I'm practical. Remember how George Jetson got stuck in his traffic jams?
Are you insane? Who wouldn't want this?
Again, totally cool, but realistically, how is this going to be used? I mean, just thinking ahead.
It'll be an Uber. I think for the most common usage will be that you will use your app to say, I need to get to this place that's 30 miles away, and I want to get there in 5 minutes.
Well, that's okay. So number one, it would be a lot faster than driving, right?
Yes.
So those rotors are really that much. I'm just thinking about like the engines on these things because
they're electric, right?
Yeah.
So
and they're battery powered, and I think they'd be much more reliable, frankly.
Yeah.
It sounds safer unless you actually fall, because then you're probably dead. But like, do we know any of the speeds on these things?
No. The actual information, and by the way, they're already flying prototypes. This airplane, the Zero airplane, has been spotted at a Silicon Valley, at an airport near Silicon Valley. There's some spy shots out there, and they're testing a lot of these concepts. This is years and years away, but let's say 15 years into the future, I think it's perfectly reasonable to just have flying cars or these self-driving airplanes to be landing, take you someplace, and come back, and it won't cost a fortune. It might cost $50 or $100 or something like that. But I think it'll be like like you say, Leo, like Teslas. You might see a Tesla somewhere in the U.S. In Silicon Valley, every 10th car is a Tesla, and they're they're for wealthier people. They're a luxury item. Eventually, electric cars that go pretty fast and are pretty great will be pretty commonplace. It'll trickle down, I guess, is the way to look at it. But this Z Aero project, Larry Page is really aggressively driving for an affordable, everyday family airplane.
And if you don't have to own it, something over 6 figures isn't necessarily a game breaker. Although I think the first ones, just like the Teslas, will be for affluent, very affluent people. These are, by the way, vertical takeoff and landing, right? So you don't have to have a runway.
And I think that's one of the necessary components. It has to be vertical. Otherwise, who's going to have their own runway? You're not going to land in the street. That would be super dangerous. But if you have a reasonable space, and of course, we're talking about anytime you talk about the future, 5 years in the future and more, you're talking about a world in which artificial intelligence is just like electricity. It's just in everything.
And that's another thing Kevin Kelly said. I just did a triangulation with him. That's exactly his point.
Yeah,
it's going to be applied to everything, and that changes everything. Here, these are by the way, the drawings I'm showing are from the Z Aero patent, which is of course publicly available. They even show it parking in between 2 cars, with its with its wings folded up.
Oh man, now I have to check my roof for dents. That's going to be terrible.
You dinged my roof. Can you imagine somebody hovering in over you and saying, "Pardon me, do you have any Grey Poupon?" I can't believe, Stacey, this is just so typical of the gulf between boys and girls. You say, why would anyone want one? And I say, why wouldn't you?
I know why someone would want one. I'm just trying to visualize how we would use it. This doesn't look like it's super fast.
It's going to be faster because you don't have to deal with traffic. It's even if it only goes 80 miles an hour.
If everyone has one of these things, will there not be traffic eventually?
No, because of autonomy. By the way, autonomy is absolutely key. And we've even seen this on regular highways. Autonomous vehicles don't have the number of traffic jams.
That's true.
But I don't think you're going to see so many of them in the air.
It's easier to visualize a world of these flying self-driving airplane things when you imagine the obvious. It's obvious that drones will be everywhere in 5 years, everywhere.
Right.
And it's obvious that self-driving cars will be everywhere in 5 to 10 years. And so let's go forward in the future 10 years, drones everywhere, big ones carrying cargo and stuff like that safely, self-driving cars driving everyone safely. The idea of a self-driving drone that a person gets in will be just so obvious.
Maybe. Aren't drones pretty noisy now as it stands? Imagine it. I mean, and they're little. Imagine.
I was like, again, speed and size, but I'm all for it. I would totally ride. I mean, I have a Tesla. I would totally buy one of these.
Yeah, see, you're the market for this.
I have a rooftop deck that I could totally land in.
Perfect. Man, we're going to Stacey's house to go for a ride in our Z Aero. I don't think I'm going to live long enough to see this in widespread use, but I have to admit that when I read about this, I thought this is never going to happen. But those are the answers to the kind of the critical questions: is the issues of safety, of driving and flying, a bunch of people flying at will in the sky. Autonomy will fix it, of course.
And of course, this is Twig, so we'd be remiss if we didn't regale listeners and viewers with the details of this secret company that has been kept really secret. So one of the things that was really amazing is initially they bought a 2-story building right next door to the Googleplex, and they only needed the bottom floor. So Larry Page personally took over the top floor, and nobody really knew what he was doing there. They were never supposed to mention the words Larry or Page, and so they referred to him as Gus. Gus is an acronym that stands for Guy Upstairs. So Gus is this. Gus is making a lot of noise. And the employees of Z Aero didn't know what he was doing up there until they finally needed the second floor and they moved his stuff out. And they're moving out these massive master's paintings and exotic exercise equipment and a climbing wall and all this other stuff. And people are watching all this stuff going by and it's like, what has this guy been doing up there? And apparently he used the entire top floor as his own personal playground and playpen and all the rest. I can't
even imagine what it would be like to be somebody like Larry Page or Sergey Brin or Elon Musk or Bill Gates. I mean, to have that kind of infinite wealth. Bill Gates at one point said, effectively, I have an infinite amount of money. I can't. Yeah. There's no way I could spend it fast enough to run out.
Right.
And that must be a very interesting place to be.
Well, it's fun to watch all these tech billionaires like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and so on. Essentially what they're doing is they're taking the things that they used to play with when they were 7-year-old boys, and they're making it real.
And again, that could be good or that could be bad.
I think that we could spend it a little bit more practically. But hey, that's just me, apparently, in my weird feminine viewpoint.
Yes, that's exactly right. You see, again, mommy doesn't want us to play around. She says, be serious, get a job.
But you can't predict the future. It's good to have all these crazy billionaires wasting their own personal fortunes on what if this? What
better
if
them
that?
than
What if
us.
rockets? What if, you know?
Yeah, better than us. And of course, this coming from a guy whose face is painted like the American flag.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, we can now stop using this as Mike's picture, although I have enjoyed it.
Matching.
It looks like
glass.
basically an absolutely insane person is telling us about flying cars, and that's exactly what this show is all
far
about.
from the truth.
It's the type of thing the insane person would be talking about, so I think it's cool.
Yeah. Someday, flying cars. And yet now you've convinced me that this is maybe a little bit more viable than I had thought. Can they get, the question is, what can they get the price down to low six
That's
figures?
your question?
Yeah.
That's my question. How soon and when can I buy one is actually my real question. I don't, wouldn't you? I mean, so you don't have a commute, Stacey.
I do. It's like down the hall from my bedroom.
I don't, and nor do I. But
I live in Austin, which has wretched traffic.
Right.
Like it can be, and again, I see the value. Actually, a guy who's building this crazy house, like not that far away from me as the crow flies, but far in terms of atmosphere. He wanted to put in like a helipad to go for his commute, but he decided we all as neighbors were against it because it was going to be crazy loud. And because apparently we're like hating on the 1%. So I would love it, but I'm also like, God, how fast do they go? How heavy? We got battery technology. They might be loud.
Also, it'll be like 100 leaf blowers. Blowing in every direction. That's a big problem that has yet to be resolved. But, the thing is that if anybody's concerned about the traffic in the sky, all you need to do to resolve that fear is to go on YouTube and look at the drone swarm technology. These universities and MIT and elsewhere have gotten 20 drones flying in perfect formation in these tight spaces indoors without any problems.
What about sunshine? What about going outside and just enjoying yourself without?
This thing could have a glass roof, Stacey. There's nature
and a glass floor.
Yeah, exactly.
When I picture our dystopian future, it does feature flying cars.
Yeah.
I picture The Fifth Element. So,
Yeah, The Fifth Element was a good example, And in The Fifth Element, Bruce Willis is trying to fly that cab in what is clearly an insane environment. But, of course, if the cab is autonomous, it wouldn't fall over like that. I don't know. I don't know why I'm watching this. Oh, this is YouTube drones.
Oh, I was like, is that a swarm?
That's a swarm. These are drone swarms. Yeah.
It'll be a trivial problem to make sure that self-flying cars will never crash into each other, that they'll all be in these highways in the sky. You'll sort of pull in and get in line behind the other ones, and it won't. That won't be the hardest part. Like you said, Stacey, it'll be batteries and things like that.
Yeah. All of which are problems we have to solve for other things as well. So.
Yeah. And of course, Elon Musk says that really what Tesla is primarily is a battery company, not a car company.
Right. They're building, that gigafactory is going to be online soon. Yeah. Dropping the price of batteries considerably. By the way, of course, Elon's the guy who said there's the chance that we are not in a game simulation is 1 in a billion. And I think we've talked about that. He said this at Recode a couple of weeks ago. I realize it's easy for him to think that because when you are that rich, you can immediately see, oh, I'm bored by life. I need to do something really, really something to keep me interested. That's when you start thinking about what we need is a perfect simulation, and I could have a life that has some struggle in it. I need to build a simulator so that bad things can happen to me. And bingo, Bob's your uncle. We're all living in a simulation.
I wonder whether his belief that it's all a simulation is part of the secret to his success. Because, I mean, what is risk-taking if you think it's all fake anyway?
I'm sure it is.
Wow, we're so meta. I don't know. I feel like we've gone off the rails here.
Well, welcome to Twig, Stacey Higginbotham. Stacey.
We don't need rails where we're going.
That's right. It's all autonomous.
Google, by the way, trolled a bunch of people. I have to get my 6P. There's an Easter egg in the Android N developer preview of version 4. They still haven't named N, but they have. But when you do the thing that pops up the version, the name of the Android N, it says Namey McNameface. But I'm thinking that's a joke.
I am pushing for a dark horse, which is Nerds Candy, because I figure there's an opportunity for Android fans to name Android after themselves. They
said it's going to be in the next couple of weeks. We'll find out.
Yeah.
Talk about taking something completely inconsequential and getting some mileage, some PR mileage out of it. They've really drawn this thing out ridiculously.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, Hiroshi Lockheimer, the VP in charge, keeps dropping the Nutella hints.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know that whoever it is that makes Nutella is like pulling for it because you can't buy that kind of publicity.
Yeah. Here's a tweet on June 6th from Hiroshi. There's one specific dish on this menu I'm keenly interested in. I hope it's not Nutella pizzetta because that sounds terrible. And then his search window where he's testing some stuff out in the search window in the back. You probably have to really zoom in to see this. Says Nutella, Google search for Nutella. He's been tweeting this stuff out like crazy. So maybe it's Nutella.
I hope not, because the statue that they're going to put at the Googleplex is just going to be a jar of Nutella.
Right.
Like what else are you
going
to
show?
A
box of nerds? Or are we going to do a pile of nerds?
Oh, you got to have a pile.
Okay. No, I'm like...
A pile of nerds would be it. But you got to get a robot in there. Maybe a robot emerging from a pile of nerds.
Yeah.
Or stacking the pile of nerds. Or popping them in their mouth. Okay. Yeah. I did spend, like, the last time we talked about it, I spent, like, 2 hours trying to think of other end desserts, and it was...
There's not a lot of choices.
I was hungry afterwards.
Yeah.
But I went with ice cream.
Did you go over to Whole Foods and get that hazelnut chocolate chip thing I talked about?
I did not.
That's
good
good stuff. Man, is that good
I believe
stuff. All right, let's take a break. More to come. Stacey Higginbotham is here from Stacey on IoT. Mr. Mike Elgan. His triumphant return to the United States. All charges have been dropped, and he is back, baby. I'm just kidding. He's in Los Angeles.
In most states.
In most states.
I can't go.
I hear Amira cooking something.
That's actually my sister.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay, because Amira your wife is an amazing
She truly
cook.
is. She truly is.
You are a lucky man, and I don't know how Mike stays so slender. He does not apparently need an Alexa skill.
As a columnist, I'm always jumping to conclusions. And
lots of
great
exercise. Our show today brought to you by our Ring Video Doorbell. We love the Ring. If you weren't so peripatetic, you could have a Ring Video.
I do have a Ring. Leo, you're not going to believe this, and people think that I'm completely nuts, but I bring my Ring Video Doorbell with me when I live in other countries because it's so easy to set up. When we were in Mexico, I duct taped it to the front door, and you really want, when you come back, when you're a third world country, Mexico isn't a third world country, but if you are in a third world country where there might be crime and stuff, I get to know whether anybody's in the house when we go in.
Wow. It's even more useful than I thought.
More useful. And it's really fun to see all the videos it creates when I'm packing and repacking. You can see all the stuff in my luggage.
The cool thing about the Ring is you can do it as Mike's doing it. I mean, it's designed for a wired doorbell, but and you see that you would take your old doorbell off, take the wires, connect them to the terminals and all that. But inside here is a pretty hefty lithium-ion battery. They say it'll last a year. They even include the USB cable that you can charge it with, plus a level, a screwdriver, drill bit, all the tools you need to set this up. It replaces your existing doorbell, wired or not, with an HD camera, a speaker, and a microphone. And then when you're not home and somebody rings the doorbell, you can answer it from anywhere via the internet. They have Ring apps for the Android and iOS, and so that's really cool. We've put together something really neat, the Ring of Security Kit. So now you get the Ring video doorbell for the front door. You get the Ring stick-up cam. That's a relatively new product of theirs. It's a wireless, weatherproof, high-def camera that you can use just like the Ring video doorbell, but in other parts. Maybe get the backyard with the stick-up cam and the front with the doorbell. And we're also including a solar panel, so you never have to have that powered. It just takes its power from the sun. And the chime, which I really like. Even if you've got a built-in doorbell that rings and everything, the chime is nice because you could put it anywhere there's a plug socket, and it will ring as well when the Ring video doorbell rings. So it's a great way to increase the reach of your doorbell. And all of this, we're going to give you a special deal on $50 off the Ring of Security Kit when you go to ring.com/twig. Ring, ring.com/twig. Take a look at the Ring. The Ring Pro now is just out. There's a home burglary every 13 seconds. They really skyrocket in the summer and people are away on vacation. Now when you're on vacation, you will be able to monitor your front door. It's got motion detection as well as ring detection. So if anybody comes up the path to your front door, you'll know whether they ring the doorbell or not. You'll get alerts on your phone. And the fact that you can come on even if you're at work or in Timbuktu and say, "Hey, yeah, I'm here. What do you want?" That's enough to scare away any burglar. And if it doesn't scare them away, you got a crystal clear video of them, which makes it a lot easier to catch them.
And then they have a great new feature, Leo, which I absolutely love because I was wishing for this and they implemented it, which is that in addition to getting the video and the alert when somebody presses the button or when there's motion, now, assuming you're plugged into the home's electricity, you can just say, "I wonder what's going on in the front yard." And you can just go and look, and you don't have to wait for motion or a ring
that's
bell.
nice.
You can look anytime you want from the app.
Oh, they have added that. That's fantastic.
They added the live view, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't even know that. I wonder if does it just update the firmware, or do I have to do anything?
No, when you update it, it should be an option, but you do have to have it wired.
Yeah, obviously, because it would kill the battery pretty quickly if you did that. Yeah, but wired, it could sit and watch. So let me see. Here's my front door. I must have to turn that on here. Oh, that is so cool. I'm learning about my Ring.
Yeah, I love that feature. And I can't use that because I'm using the battery because I'm duct taping it to the wall.
I can't believe you're doing that.
You should get double-sided tape because duct tape. I've duct taped doorbells to my house, and double-sided is way better.
Yeah.
So here's a quick
Look at that.
recommendation: Gorilla Tape, greatest tape ever. Anyway, so and so what I'm amazed by is the battery. I've only charged this thing once. I've owned it for like forever.
Hey, honey, are you there? I see Lisa's car out front. Hey, honey, can you hear me?
Passers-by.
You can punk people.
Yeah.
I see you. I see you. What are you doing? I want a cracker. I want a cracker. I probably should stop doing that right now. That is really, this is the live view. I didn't even know they had that. I could just turn that on.
Such a great feature.
Ring.com/twig. Get on the Ring train right now, baby. Right now. Ring's a thing. Let's see. Google's Springboard is search engine build. I don't care about that.
You want to talk about net neutrality or Apple?
Oh, now, okay, so I have an opinion on the net neutrality, and then we'll talk about Apple, right? Because you cover home automation, so the new HomeKit stuff.
But I've also covered net neutrality for years, so I'm raring to go.
So the Court of Appeals has upheld the FCC's decision to call broadband providers telecom providers using Title II. Now, this was a little controversial when the FCC voted for this because, of course, classifying something as Title II does allow the FCC to do things like set price. But they said, no, we're only going to do some of the things, and the most important one is protect net neutrality, make sure that there are no deals for better access. Now, of course, immediately AT&T and others say no and appeal and sue and whatever. The Court of Appeals has now upheld the FCC. And by the way, they've turned down a lot of these things in the past. But the FCC is using a power given to it by Congress. And that's the key. Congress said, no, the FCC can classify providers as telecommunications providers. That's part of, and it can regulate telecommunications providers. So the court said, yep, this is well within your purview. Now, AT&T said immediately, well, we're taking this to the Supreme Court. But I guess my point would be, even if they lose in the Supreme Court, right now lobbyists are working really hard on Congress because ultimately it's Congress that decides what the FCC can do. And what Congress giveth, it can taketh away. And Congress could easily pass a law that says, no. These guys are not, these broadband providers are not telecommunications providers. So I feel like it's not a time to ring the bell and celebrate. Stacey, your opinion?
Wow. I think it is time to celebrate. I mean, yes, it could go to the Supreme Court. Right now,
it will go to the Supreme Court.
It will, yes.
If they agree. Yeah.
Unless, yes, if they agree to hear it, it will end up there. And we're kind of in this weird space with the Supreme Court. But aside from all that, I'm excited because this gives the FCC, not only does it stop kind of the net neutrality shenanigans from like 2008 and 2009, which is kind of the way rules get written. It takes a while, right? This is the FCC's second try actually at net neutrality. But what it also does, and this is kind of one of the things that the FCC is allowed to enforce as part of Title II, is some privacy rules. So they can start looking at like the data that your broadband carrier has, what they're doing with it. They can also like rules, things like AT&T's gigabit service. When you buy that, you have two options. You can buy a version that gives AT&T permission to market to you based on your web history, and that's much cheaper than buying the version that doesn't, right? So it's kind of like the Kindle with ads or not, except it's your broadband service. So the FCC, people in the FCC have told me, and this was about a year ago, that they were looking at using some of those rules to kind of stop some of these practices, which they felt was a little bit shifty, making your broadband privacy kind of a luxury.
Interesting.
So I'm excited about that. And I don't see how it can help data caps necessarily, but I'm sure someone who is way smarter may be looking for that, because that's another thing that I think we should be paying a little bit more attention to. So
I agree with you, but on the other hand, this is a risky game. I think the FCC, if it wants to avoid congressional interference, it would behoove them to be cautious in how they take advantage of these Title II powers. I mean, if you really care about net neutrality, maybe just start there. Because if it gets too overreaching, then it's more and more likely that Congress is going to say, no, wait a minute, that's not what we intended.
So the 1996 Telecommunications Act is 20 years old. No, 30 years old.
20.
No. 20. Math. It's so easy.
Long time. It's old.
It's ancient. Yeah. And there's always talk of revisiting this law. Like last year, the year before, this isn't going to happen this year. It's not going to, I mean, we're about to go into an election.
They got an election to worry about, so you're probably right. Yeah.
Next year, maybe, depending on who's elected president, the FCC may decide not to enforce some of these things. It's all at their discretion. So I look at this and I'm like, God, thank you for like giving us some definitive language around net neutrality, which we have really been fighting since 2007. The initial idea was in 2005, and 11 years later, we finally have some clarity. The other thing we should note is this enforces the same rules for our net neutrality on wireless networks too, which...
Wow. Even Google didn't think that was a good idea.
Yeah, well...
Okay, so, I'm willing to celebrate.
I'm always willing to celebrate. So, like, raise a glass. This is a good move for today.
I mean, it is clear that this isn't the final say on this, and you never get the final say because ultimately, all the court ruled on is this in your congressional mandate? Does the Telecom Act say you can do this? Yes, it does. But Congress can always change the rules. The FCC only can do what the Congress says it can do. That's the mandate.
I have very little faith in Congress to actually change anything.
I also have very little faith in Congress not to look at lobbyist money and say, so I think it could go either way. I'm not a political analyst. I don't know what the election does to this. Maybe we'd have to wait till after the election, where a member of Congress would have a couple of years to get over any negative splashback from its constituent. What's interesting, there was a great article in Ars Technica about
John Brodkin.
I'm thinking of Nate Anderson's article that goes.
Oh, okay.
This goes back a way to a really interesting notion, something I've been pushing for years, which is that really the whole idea of data caps, the whole idea of ISPs to charge more for more data is actually not economically justified.
Right. Oh my gosh, I've been saying this forever.
The bits are essentially free. There's an incremental cost to providing switches and cabling, but once you install that, the bits, because of peering arrangements, don't cost you much, if anything at all.
Right.
And so really, this is another case of ISPs, broadband providers, gorging at the trough without any economic justification. Of course, they say, oh, no, bandwidth hogs are costing us a lot of money. We can't afford to foot the bill. And
so they don't say that as much. They're actually pretty subtle about it. When they make these arguments, they argue that you're paying for fairness. So
fairness. Well.
So it's not that it costs, the insinuation is that it costs them a lot of money. But, and engineers from Comcast have said, no, it doesn't. And to be fair, there are costs for sending somebody out to split the node at your cable network.
There's some costs. I'm not saying that, right.
It isn't, you're right. And it
doesn't automatically go up when you use more bandwidth.
Right. And yes, don't get me started, Leo.
It's New York Times actually a year ago wrote an article saying that the marginal cost of bandwidth is almost nothing.
The profit margins on bandwidth are 95%. Yeah. That's from Craig Moffett.
Yeah.
Who is an analyst who covers this industry and is fairly pro telecom.
Yeah. So you get all these protests from the ISPs because they're getting a good deal, and as a result, we're getting about the worst internet connection. Mike Elgan's testimony.
Yes.
Of any developed nation. it's just terrible.
Well, looking at the really big picture, what frustrates me is the fact that if, let's say, for example, the U.S. government rewrote the entire deal with providing internet connectivity and said, okay, we're going to invest, just throw out a huge number, $50 billion or $100 billion in laying fiber everywhere and allowing private companies to offer only service from the government's fiber to the last mile. And if that kind of a scenario resulted in every single person in the U.S. having vastly higher bandwidth connectivity to the internet, the economy of the U.S. would probably pay for all this in 2 weeks.
I kind of agree with you, yeah.
And it's why are we farting around with all this nickel and diming and all this stuff when this is the opportunity for the U.S. to just be a superpower for another 100 years instead of declining and becoming a third-rate, 2-bit second to North Korea and Transylvania and so on in terms of internet connectivity.
All right. So we actually looked at this. The U.S. government did some surveys. I think it was in 2009, maybe, a national broadband effort. And to lay fiber everywhere, to almost everyone, was $111 billion, which is a crazy amount of money. Okay.
Nothing.
Hold on. But we made a decision as a country, our politicians made a decision to not let the government invest in the infrastructure. Hell, we can't even do our roads. So what they did is they set it up. You have cable and DSL providers, or now for AT&T and Verizon, so the UVerse, the copper-based companies. And those guys, they were like, that'll be competitive enough. And what happened was it wasn't. So none of us are surprised, right? But what's happening, not only is Google laying fiber and pushing them, we're also getting some really interesting innovations with gigabit wireless, which Facebook, Google, AT&T, Verizon, they're even looking at deploying this, which actually takes the cost of deploying broadband down so much. So then it becomes realistic, but we're never going to go back to we don't have the option to make that decision again. It's impossible. Sorry.
Well, we need Google balloons to come out here to Southern California because I need a faster connection.
I think you made
Don't get in the way of your flying cars.
You made such a good point, though, Mike, that the benefit to society, to our economy, would easily cover the costs of anything that could improve this infrastructure.
Whatever it takes. Just
And why
make it
do we
happen
lack
because
the
we need-
political will to spend money on infrastructure? What the hell's wrong with that?
Because the people in control of the bandwidth benefit financially from scarcity or a sense of scarcity.
Which is why I'm hesitant to celebrate our court victory, Stacey, because those guys with black bags filled with money are still prowling the halls of Congress.
And I think the
In
fact
a lot
that
of ways, this is a lost fight. They play the long game. Like you could see them back in like 2011 getting ahead of all this. So they may attack this, and that's fine, but they're already coming up with new ways to get revenue. And you're looking at things like the zero rating on the wireless side, on the wireline side.
Which is another form, by the way, of violating net neutrality. Zero rating is exactly the same problem.
So in the privacy stuff that I was mentioning that AT&T is doing, data caps, all of those are basically ways to keep their revenue the same, their average revenue per user the same, even as the triple play goes all over the top. I mean, that's their game. And from a stockholder or shareholder perspective, I totally see why they're doing it. I wish they wouldn't, but that's our.
Well, at least the president now has a Galaxy S4 instead of a BlackBerry. Thank God for that. He's only using a 3-year-old phone now. Apparently, of course, in order to give the president a phone, you've got to be able to secure it like crazy, and that means it takes a few years. President Obama has been using a BlackBerry. There's a picture of him waving from his limousine with his BlackBerry. That's 6 years ago. That's in 2010. He really wanted to do kind of what Hillary Clinton did, which is to have you have a private phone. But they just said, no, you can't do it. But now he's told Jimmy Fallon he has a Galaxy S4. It's hardened. I kind of feel sorry for the guy. Can we get the president an iPhone just once? Just once.
Yeah, how about an American phone instead of Canadian or Korean one? Yeah, I don't, the thing that's interesting about the hardening of this, of course, there are Android-based secure phones out there, the black phone and so on. But this is hardened in ways that nobody knows exactly what it is. It's an NSA-approved security system that the details of which are not available to the public. And I'd be really curious to see how they're enabling the president to communicate and to move around, presumably use the GPS system without really any risk of compromising his security.
Yeah, you could turn off the radio, you could turn off the location, but I think there are two goals with any government communications device. One, of course, security, but secondarily, you've got to keep track of everything that goes on, and there's transparency rules. All the communications, all the texts, all the emails, all belong to the people of the United States. So you've got to keep those also, and that's another. So there's two issues. It's probably easier for them almost to build their own phone from scratch, and I suspect that it may say Galaxy S4 on the lid, but inside is probably a lot of NSA circuitry. It's very, very.
Do the president's texts, do those become part of the public record? Okay.
It's one of the reasons the president was reluctant to use texting, because he said, I don't want text to my daughters to become part of the public record. So, yeah, you don't have a lot of privacy. I'm sure he's looking forward to January a little bit, right? Apple had a big event this week, announced a lot of interesting things, which I think are appropriate for us to talk about. Let's start with the Apple TV. When Google came out with its on-hub router, there was a lot of speculation. Oh, this is a stealth Trojan horse to get into the house so that Google can set up its home automation play, and nothing. In fact, it's pretty clear now that the on-hub isn't going anywhere. Same speculation about the new Apple TV, except the difference here is Apple says, yes, as a matter of fact, this is the hub for HomeKit. So when you're away from home, you'll be connecting to your Apple TV, which will open the garage doors, change the heat, turn on the watering system, and all of that. Stacey, you must be keeping track of this.
Yes, I'm super excited. Well, okay, not super excited. I'm cautiously optimistic. That's probably a better way to do it.
You know what? That's kind of the bottom line for this whole damn show.
I was not cautiously optimistic about the cars, but
just cautious.
Just cautious.
Just cautious.
So Apple's got a new app called Home. Apple HomeKit does have quite a few, right? There are quite a few companies that use HomeKit, right?
There are, yes. I mean, it's not the whole ecosystem, obviously.
No.
It's a limited number. Like, there's only the August lock. There's a lot of expected devices that haven't gotten out yet. Some of my favorite companies, like Lutron, I love those guys. They're HomeKit certified. But
First Alert, Ecobee, Connect Sense, Elgato, Hire, Honeywell, iDevices, iHome, Incipio, Insteon. Insteon, of course, is a big hub. So if you could connect to the Insteon hub, then it connects to other things, right?
Right. So
we've seen the Lutron lights. You mentioned those, and Philips Hue, Schlage
you had to
locks.
buy a new thing. Yeah, those are.
Schlage now works with HomeKit, so
Okay. Yay! Oh, yay, Schlage. Okay,
yeah,
so
and that's
Schlage
one of the
and
big smart locks, right?
Well, that's just a big lock company,
right? But there's Sense Smart Deadbolt is now HomeKit enabled.
I've played with the Sense. That's actually an okay lock. It's actually higher quality than my current Quickset locks, I thought. Okay, so the thing they did was announce a unifying. Well, one of the things they did, in addition to the TV, was announce a unifying app for all of these things to work together. Because beforehand, they had third parties do it, and it was awkward. So initially, the big problem that HomeKit solved was around getting your devices online and security.
Right.
And that was why everything had to have the MiFi chip. So people who bought the initial Ecobee, for example, they didn't actually get a HomeKit certified one. So people were upset about that. Same with the Philips Hub. I didn't upgrade to the HomeKit hub, but I will, so I can test it out. Anyway, so the new unified app looks really good, and I think it was totally necessary because people were like, yay, I can turn my lights on with my voice if I have the right phone, but I can't go in and set up other things to happen. So if I unlock my door, I can't set up for my lights to turn on unless I'm using like a third-party app. And so now Apple's created that sort of thing, that ecosystem that will come out with. It's 10, right? Is that what we're on? iOS 10?
Yeah, iOS 10. The next generation of iOS will have the Home app. It'll center all this stuff so that you can use it. And you got to think Apple's going to do a great job with security. Of course, the issue is all these competing standards, Zigbee and Z-Wave,
and nobody, I live in a mixed use household, so I've got a mixed phone relationship,
as most people do.
Yeah, and I also don't think you want your devices that are going to be stuck. Like, your locks are going to be on your door, hopefully, for like a decade.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be stuck in the Apple ecosystem. And Apple doesn't play well with others. People I've talked to who are developing for HomeKit say they can only use HomeKit for their device itself.
Oh, wait a minute. So I couldn't make something that worked with both HomeKit and SmartThings? You
can if you use a bridge. So that's what the bridge is about. So like a Lutron bridge or some of these other things, and it's different. It's not, because the Ecobee 3 works with HomeKit and SmartThings.
So it is possible.
It is possible. It's what's the code? Oh God. No, I can't remember what it is that they're limiting. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I think it's the device communication protocol.
I kind of would expect Apple to say, oh, and by the way, if you want to work with us, you better not work with those other guys. I mean, to hear you say that doesn't surprise me, and yet that's
I'm not remembering the details of how they kind of enforce that.
Yeah, it's not going to be a good solution for people if you can't use it. Because is Apple big enough, I guess, is the question, to get everybody, to get all these guys in the game? Maybe not.
Some people refuse to work with HomeKit because they don't like how closed off it is.
Right.
Now, Apple's been opening up a little, though. I mean, we saw the SDK for Siri. We've seen some other kind of indications that maybe it's...
Well, that's the chief thing Apple brings to the table, besides, of course, Market Cloud, is Siri and the ability to talk to your home.
My Echo does that.
But that's the problem, is if you have SmartThings and Echo, you already have experienced that.
Right.
Stacey, do you think that Apple will ever come out with a dedicated appliance, or do you think they'll just use Apple TV as their Amazon Echo or some other
Apple
approach
TV
to
makes sense. I really do.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought initially they could do it with the what's it called? Use Bonjour and the Airport Express. Is that the Wi-Fi extenders?
Yeah, Airport Express. Yeah.
I thought, you could stick a Zigbee or a Z-Wave radio in there and it'd be like, well, bam, smart home.
But the Apple TV's microphone is in the remote. It's the only, and it's not always listening.
Right.
So it wouldn't be as effective. I mean, that's maybe Amazon and Google, when this Hello things come out, maybe they have a leg up on Apple just because of that.
Well,
Yeah, and also
Your iPhone's always listening. But
always listening.
That's typical of Apple, right? Oh, but if you wanted to use this, you have to have an Apple Watch, an iPhone, and a Macintosh, and an Apple TV, and then it'll all work great. Typical, right? They're just selling more product. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I was just going to say, even if a future Apple TV had the mic built in and you were supposed to just talk at the TV, that wouldn't help you in the bedroom, in the bathroom, in the kitchen, et cetera.
Right.
And so, I think I'm a little shocked that Amazon clobbered everyone in this and got such a head start. It's comparable to the head start Apple got with the iPad, which, they just owned it for 2 years. And I think that if Apple isn't seriously working on something like the Amazon Echo and the Echo Dot and so on, they're really in trouble, because I think that's going to be a huge market and a huge way for people to interact with their devices.
Yeah.
I always thought, I think Apple should buy Sonos.
I
know
agree.
Sonos has gone astray,
Yeah.
but I think it's it'd
That's
be
a
fun,
natural relationship.
but we'll see. I will say, because someone asked it in the chat, I'm currently using the Wink hub as my smart home hub. But I think most normal people are not going to want a hub, which is why I like that Apple put it in the TV.
Right.
Because, most people are not going to really love programming their smart home.
And I can
that's where I
imagine
think-
Apple releasing some always listening device. The hub just means that you have to have one thing that's on your network that's going to manage all this stuff, but it doesn't have to be the thing that's listening. So I can imagine Apple making little listening devices, or, your watch listens and your phone listens. I guess that's the way to do it.
You need something to have, something needs to have radios. So you've got to have whatever radios you're going to want to support.
Right.
And that's an open thing, how you want to do that. And then you need some computing power to remember, to execute commands when you're offline. So if your internet goes down, your lights still turn on.
That's actually a good point. We've seen problems with home security systems that don't work if you're not online. So a bad guy just cuts the cord and you're done. Though some of them that use radio don't work when you jam the radio too. So if you're going to rely on these things, they have to be a little more robust.
And of course, Apple is the kind of company that would actually advertise the fact that they're
Right.
not uploading any recordings or processing it remotely. It's a great opportunity for the chip companies, because they're going to need a lot of processing power in order to provide, Siri and artificial intelligence without a connection or without uploading. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Apple is making a big deal about its differential privacy, and this is one where it sounds good in theory, and the devil is in the details. Great post from Matthew Green, who is one of our favorite crypto guys. He's at Johns Hopkins University, and his blog is a must-read in the crypto community. He talks a little bit about differential privacy, explains what it is. It's been around for a long time. He said, I'm going to have to temper my initial reaction to this, which is, it's so cool that Apple's using our latest, greatest technology. He says, on the one hand, as a researcher, I understand how exciting it is to see research technology actually deployed in the field, and Apple has a big field. On the flip side, as security professionals, it's our job to be skeptical, to at a minimum demand people release their security critical code, or at least to be straightforward about what it is they're deploying. If Apple is going to collect a significant new amount of data from the devices we depend on so much, which effectively Apple's saying it is, we should really make sure they're doing it right rather than cheering them for using such cool ideas. But if you want to find out what differential privacy is, he's got a good explainer here. Wired kind of borrowed the explainer for their article about this. Google uses a similar system to collect usage statistics in the Chrome browser. The example Wired gave is, if you want to find out information about a group of people, let's say if they have a criminal record, but you don't want any individual to be associated with that criminal record, what you do is you ask two questions. First question is, flip a coin. If it's heads, heads, lie on the next question. If it's tails, tell the truth. And don't tell us what the coin flip was. Next question, do you have a criminal record? And then you can defuzz it because you know how many heads and tails there'll be. And so you can get an accurate number about how many people have a criminal record without attaching it to any individual. So that's the theory behind differential privacy, which Apple announced. But he says it really depends a lot on implementation. There's kind of this curve where it's more anonymous but less useful versus more useful but really not very anonymous. And how you twist those dials makes a very big difference in the results here. So if you want to know more about this, I encourage you to read Matthew Green's post, I think it was yesterday, on his blog, which is blog.cryptographyengineering.com. And then, Apple's been of course, as usual, like Apple, not very forthcoming about what they're doing, just saying, hey, it works and it's great. So we got to put the screws to Apple in a security white paper or something to explain what they're doing.
And they're planning to bring it to iOS 10 keyboard, the Spotlight searches, and Notes.
And I think it's not in Apple's interest, really. Look, if Apple's going to compete with Google and Facebook, they need to mine your data. And they can make a lot of noise about differential privacy, but it's not very useful in knowing about you. You can't use it to know about you, only about a group in aggregate. And so I think Apple's going to do a lot of hand waving about differential privacy, and then meanwhile start mining your data just like everybody else does.
So what's possibly a good thing about this is that we now have, with such a big company that is so friendly to the mainstream consumer, admitting that they're going to be sucking in more data, it's possible that, people in Congress and normal people start worrying about this a little bit more, and we actually get some sort of conversation about how our data is being used, who's got access to it, what do we know, how long do they keep it, et cetera, et cetera.
I do think people are much more aware of this. I mean, Apple doesn't bring this up because nobody cares.
Right. Well, that's good. And they're also educating the rest of the people. I don't know. I used to sit in congressional hearings and watch them, and sometimes I'm amazed at what they don't seem to know.
The Congress?
Mm-hmm.
You're amazed? Well, what you're saying is they don't know stuff that we on the street, normal people know.
Right. That we kind of take for granted about how our tech works, because they're a bunch of really old white men for the most part.
Right.
So,
and I think that it's certainty that our next president won't know anything much about technology.
Yeah, Clinton admits she doesn't.
Yeah, and Trump has demonstrated.
Trump doesn't want to know anything about technology. So you're right. It's going to be interesting. This is the last gasp of a generation that didn't grow up with technology, though. I mean,
right.
Right. But in the meantime, we are really giving lots of people lots of data that's really useful, and we're not 100% sure how it can be used, how it can be subpoenaed, how it can be, our metadata can be mined to actually deliver personal and identifiable information.
Here's how you know if Apple is doing it right or not. If Apple really starts to become good as, for instance, Google now, in knowing stuff about you, like here's your airplane ticket, you see you at the airport, if they really start getting good at that, then you pretty much know they're doing the same data mining that Google's doing. And if they remain not so good at it, then they're not.
Well, not necessarily, because reading your email and knowing your location and all that stuff can all happen entirely on the phone.
That's what they're saying. It's all on device. We're not.
Whereas Google just is, and Amazon, by the way, is uploading everything. I mean, in fact, the actual recording of your voice is uploaded and stored.
And they make no bones about it. Go to google.com/dashboard. You can see all your voice searches. Listen to all your voice searches.
Yeah.
You're right. I think if Apple, and that was the other side of this equation, Apple said on device a lot. And if it really is true they can do this stuff effectively on device, then, you're right. Maybe this is the right way to do it. And maybe Google will sit up and take notice and maybe follow along, because this is clearly the right way to do it.
I mean, one of my concerns with all the privacy conversations that people have is that everyone's complaining about the personal data that's being sent to who knows where. And I'm always wondering, well, what is the benefit exactly? Is the benefit really that great? I mean, Google now is pretty good, but it's not that great.
No.
I mean, it's, they're kind of reading your, you have a flight. Well, that's cool, But it's like the amount of personal information that companies like Facebook or Google have harvested about me, I just don't see the payoff. Not with advertising.
As a user? Okay.
I made the mistake of
It's not
the
worth
other
it.
day of going and looking at a backpack, and now every ad is a backpack, and I'm not really sure that that's the future of personalized advertising.
No, I agree. Although
No,
that
that's
harm
like
is
just-
trivial. I mean, that's not.
The harm is trivial, but the benefit isn't. Like, where's the benefit?
Right.
I just don't see the benefit.
I gave them that information. This is what the best they can do with it. And I think that's why people are kind of aware of it now. It's just merely that the recommendation engine sucks so badly that we're getting all.
Well, look at what Facebook. I think there's there's something in our list about Facebook anticipating suicide. People who are contemplating suicide.
Yeah.
That's actually AI and data in action. It's not defined. Most of the stuff like triggered solely at you is marketing based, but that sort of service is also built on the backs of all the data from the posts they've collected. So are things like,
But now, okay,
auto-tagging.
I'm against suicide. And I think anybody who's about to commit suicide, it's great if you can intervene. But this is the kind of the ultimate in snooping.
It is. We talked about it a couple shows ago, I think, how Facebook was kind of leery about doing this, but I think they must have made a decision that the good outweighs the harm. I mean,
Yeah, but who are they to make that decision? This is a for-profit company deciding, it's okay.
They're only the most important and powerful organization in the history of mankind. That's who.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we've talked about this. You guys have talked about this a lot, about that town hall where somebody said, "Hey, should we prevent Donald Trump from winning? We could just throw a switch and he wouldn't have a chance." And they thought, nah, let's not do. We don't. It's almost like the power and control that
the fact that they can even ask that question.
Yeah, and
it's remarkable.
And we're relying on them not feeling like it.
Right.
I mean,
that's not great.
Yeah, they have a larger news audience than any news organization in the history of the world.
Yeah. Today, let's not be evil today. Maybe tomorrow.
They're more powerful than almost every other government on earth. I mean, Facebook is just
true of Google too, though, or not?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I mean, Google could really mess with us if they decided to start monkeying around with searches.
There was that video that said that Hillary Clinton was getting a free pass from Google's autocomplete, because if you type Hillary Clinton CRI, you're not going to get crimes. Matt Cutts weighed in immediately saying, absolutely false. We do that for everyone. We try not to, in autocomplete, surface
offensive stuff.
So if you type Hillary Clinton CRI, you get crime reform, crisis, and crime bill 1994. I have to point out, if you type, first of all, nobody relies on that. And if you type Hillary CRI, you get Hillary criticism, Hillary cries, Hillary criminal email. So it's clearly a filter, and it would work the same way with everybody, that they don't want to surface crimes in the autocomplete.
Interestingly, though, Matt Cutts pointed out that people who are very anti a given candidate tend to use their on a first name basis with their nemesis, and so that's why, because people who have a bias against Hillary Clinton don't say Hillary Clinton, they say Hillary.
Oh, interesting.
And even Trump, says crooked Hillary.
Right.
He doesn't say crooked Hillary Clinton. I don't think he ever says that. But the big story here is and Jeff Jarvis isn't here, so I'll be the inappropriately anti-Trump person. But Donald Trump is demonstrated contempt for Silicon Valley and technology that's pretty scary. For example, doesn't like his coverage in the Washington Post and starts talking about who is going to go after Jeff Bezos and Amazon for antitrust issues. And this is another one where he's essentially pandering to the ignorance of the public.
Well, did that video come from him or no? It just came from a YouTuber.
But didn't he?
I'm sure he was thrilled to see it.
We're talking about it.
He might have tweeted it. Yeah.
Right. And so that's a real source of concern, to just be completely, Matt Cutts is trying to use logic, reason, and facts to counter what is just a political opportunism.
Yeah.
And so that's a little scary.
Here's an interesting, now in more cheerful news, Here, artificial intelligence produces realistic sounds that could fool humans. This is just a wild example of machine learning. What they did is they taught essentially machine learning to understand what kind of sounds physical things in the world made by just feeding it a lot of information.
These sounds can tell us.
And just to be clear, it's not generating the sounds, they're recorded sounds. It's matching sounds with what it should sound like based on what it knows about the materials and the surfaces that are supposedly producing noises.
And it fooled real people.
We ask it to produce a plausible soundtrack to go along with it. To perform this task well, the algorithm has to recognize the materials that are being hit and the actions that are being performed, but we don't explicitly tell it about these things. Instead, it has to learn about them by recognizing patterns in the raw audiovisual signal.
This is the
Our
true,
algorithm takes a video sequence
artificial intelligence or
and it
machine
predicts
learning.
a corresponding sequence of sound features. After a network predicts sound features,
This is a neural network.
we synthesize a waveform by matching these features to a database of impact sounds and transferring the best matches. Here are some soundtracks that our algorithm produced.
This is, listen, leaves,
It's good.
and then it hits a stick. This is computer-generated sound. Oh, the sound is real, but it's matching the sounds.
To help understand what our model's doing, we can look at the video clips in our database that it's transferring audio from. These are the audio clips whose sound features are most similar to those predicted by our model.
It's kind of amazing.
You know,
So
suddenly
basic-
Hollywood sound engineers are
This is
realizing
the
that they're
automated
next.
Foley, right? This is from MIT.edu. It's actually doing a pretty good job. Fooled me.
Well, it's actually from a computer perspective, if you think about matching an image to a name of what that image is, it's kind of doing the same thing.
Right.
It's matching. So, it is cool.
No,
Again,
it's just
I'm
the
like,
beginning.
but it's-
This is exactly the point. Is that we think of computer image recognition, but there's also but we've got to get the whole sensorium. I'm sure there's smell recognition coming any day now.
The big picture is that slowly but surely we're creating human cognition.
Yeah.
You're essentially saying, okay, we're teaching this particular machine learning AI that, so you identify the object, that's a stick, that's a bush. What do sticks sound like? What do big sticks sound like? What do little sticks sound like? What do plastic sticks, and we're teaching them all these properties, not only recognizing what's there, but then having
We're
a
actually
database
not
of
teaching them using
what
a
they're
neural
like.
network. The computer
It's
teaches
teaching
itself.
itself.
Yeah.
We're just
Which
feeding
is
it
the big deal.
data.
Yeah.
So,
We've been through several AI winters, but I think we're in an AI spring.
Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. U.S. Air Force, little plug for carbonite. You might want to think about it. Apparently, actually, you can't blame the Air Force because the Automated Case Tracking System, or ACTS, is run for the Air Force by a commercial entity. And apparently, the database crashed, and they've done everything they can to recover it, and they have lost records of 100,000 investigations into everything from workplace disputes to fraud. Lockheed Martin, of course, the defense company that manages this database for the Air Force. Apparently, there's no backup. And so these
It's unbelievable.
I would be insecure.
We've kind of exhausted. This is Air Force spokesperson. We've kind of exhausted everything we can to recover within the Air Force. Now we're going to outside experts to see if they can help.
I'm
Now-
sure the Chinese government has a copy of all that stuff.
Yeah, maybe ask them. You might ask, well, was this just accidental, or are there some ongoing investigations in there that somebody didn't want you
That was my first thought.
to know about? The database goes back to 2004, but yes, there are current investigations in there. So, wow. Talk about inept. You had one job. It's just bizarre.
And then we don't.
All right, let's wrap this up with some final thoughts. Maybe Stacey said the most stressful part about doing this is the pick of the week. But I've told you, Stacey, you may do anything you want. It does not have to be anything having to do with technology. So I think
I
she's
feel
got,
like 9 out of 10 times, or maybe 8 out of 10. It should be.
okay. Mine is completely weird. So okay, I'm just telling you. But first, let me tell you about this. This is my pick for never losing your keys. Again, it's the tracker. I love this idea. This was a Kickstarter, and it's gotten better and better. This is the latest anodized aluminum, very lightweight. It attaches to remotes, keys, even animals. In fact, they've got a waterproof case if you want to put it on your pet's collar. And because it's so lightweight, it's really, really unobtrusive. Now, you see, I have it attached to my keys. Well, the key is you pair this to the app in your phone via Bluetooth. And the separation alerts go both ways. So if you lose your phone, you can press the button on the tracker, and the phone rings, even if it's on silent. And, of course, if you lose your keys, the tracker has a map on your phone that says, here's where they are. Even inside your house, they've got a cool way of kind of finding stuff even inside the house, like narrowing it down to, it's under that seat cushion. Now, the other thing that's cool is because there are so many tracker devices out there, 1.5 million devices in the wild, they have the largest crowd GPS network in the world. So that means if I lose my keys on the beach, I leave the beach. If somebody walks by with the tracker app running, their app will see my keys and notify me through the tracker network where my keys are. So you can see the last time your keys were seen, even if it's not through your own phone. They've also partnered with companies like HP, allowing companies to build trackable products and utilize the scale of this tracker GPS network in your next HP device. It's Bluetooth LE, so the battery lasts over a year. It is replaceable, so you just pop it out. It's one of those dime-like lithium batteries. You can also purchase the water-resistant case, which makes it great for pet collars or in challenging environments. You'll never lose a thing again with Tracker, but you got to get a tracker for everything that you lose. So here's the deal. Go to thetracker, TheTracker.com. They say the hardest thing will be finding the website. TheTracker.com. There's no E. And just
Perfect
for our audience,
Father's Day gift.
It
Perfect
is.
Father's Day gift.
They have, I think it might be too late. I mean, Father's Day
Kevin.
is Sunday.
Yeah.
But Kevin, are you listening? Buy two, get
He
two
always
free
listens.
for Father's Day. But if you missed that deal, we have a special offer for you for our audience. Use the promo code TWIG for 30% off your entire order. So TheTracker.com, promo code TWIG. So use if the Father's Day deal is still good as you hear this, that'd be the best deal because that's half off, but you have to buy 4 of them. If it's not good anymore, use our promo code TWIG and 30% off no matter how big or small your order is. TheTracker.com, promo code TWIG. You lose your keys a lot? You will never lose them again.
Yeah.
Let us do our pick of the week thing. And Stacey, I feel so bad about you being nervous about this. I want to start with you. So you just get this off your plate.
Off my plate. This week I actually have something really cool. Okay. This requires a setup. All right, here's what I'm showing you guys. This is the Illumi outdoor LED floodlight.
ILUMI.
Yes. The reason this is cool is because it's the only color changing outdoor rated light bulb.
Oh.
I have found. It's a BR 30, BR30. It is, I'm looking IP64 rated and UV coated. So I've had this outside in the rain for like 2 weeks now, 2.5 weeks. And it's rained a lot here in Austin. It's on my roof. So it's super hot, super intense. And that is that. So here's what it does. Oh, that's blue.
Ooh.
Green.
So it's like a hue, but it's the one that you can put outside.
Yes. And so it's also, hue doesn't have a good kind of green color, but this one does. Not that I really recommend that, but that's okay. So here's the other cool thing that it does, you guys.
You don't need a hub for this either, which is nice.
No.
The hue
it's
requires
a Bluetooth
hub.
light.
Yeah.
Now, okay, I will tell you, these are on my roof. Well, right now it's on my desk next to me, but if it were on my roof, because my office is out of range, I couldn't actually control it.
You'd have to go upstairs to do your lights.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so here's the party fun thing. Let's see if
it's going to... Oh, it's a disco in Stacey's house. So the lights, if you're not watching, are going in different colors to the music.
So, and there's actually different themes you can
That's actually
run.
really fun.
Isn't that fun? And so the downside is It's through Spotify. Okay, so on an Android, it's through Spotify and Google Play.
Okay.
Which means I can't run it over my Sonos. But if you turn the volume down on this and then you play the same thing over like your exterior,
just as well,
you still get that kind of fun flashiness.
Right. Oh, this is
$70.
Cool. Now here's a question, because I see it has power on defaults. One of the things, and I got somebody calling the radio show this weekend about it, and I had to agree with him. The default on the Hue lights is if the power goes out, they come on fully bright, and which means I don't want this in my bedroom because, and it happened to me about 3 in the morning, all my lights come on all the way up. And I'm going, what? And I'm scrambling around. Fortunately, Lisa had the presence of mind to go flip the switch. I'm trying to find my phone to turn off the Hues.
You didn't tell your Echo to turn them off?
No, I didn't have. This was before I had an Echo, and it's actually one of the reasons I haven't since reinstalled the Hues. Can you say the power on default is off? It looks like you can on this.
I don't know. Okay. This has never happened to me.
It says power on defaults. That implies that you can.
That does.
It also says it can detect your presence.
Oh, I think through Bluetooth, so it knows when my smartphone's there. So it's not like the stack light.
But I like that idea. If you walk in the room, it can see that you're home, and it will turn on the lights. I like that. Clap on. You don't even have to clap anymore.
No clapping.
Yep. Music sync, rise and shine.
That's my thing, because, it's
all
cool.
right. Illumi. ILUMI. And there's more, though. But wait, she's not done.
Oh.
Do you want to do your Austin dive bar?
I'm fine with it. It's a super well-known dive bar in Austin, so it's not like this is going to be secret for anyone.
I already have one bar I love in Austin. That's the Alamo Draft House, because it's a movie theater bar.
They have free movies during the summertime for kids. They're all kids movies, but like
I've actually considered moving to Austin just because of Alamo.
It's a good place. So they asked me for a dive bar. So I did provide them with the Little Longhorn Saloon, because at 4 p.m. on Sundays, you can play a game called Chicken Poop Bingo. They don't call it that because we're in Texas. So the game basically is they feed this chicken. They let it run around on a bingo. But you put bets on where it's going to poop, and if it poops in square.
And there's video.
Of course there's video. I mean, this is basically an excuse to gamble.
Ginny's Little Longhorn Saloon. Good music, I bet, right?
Many Austinites. And a tourist magnet during South by Southwest.
Wow. Oh, it's tiny.
Yes. It's out in Burnett, which is...
Do you go out, if I lived in Austin, I would go out for music every night. Do you go out at least once a week?
I've got a kid, so I'm waiting for her to grow up, but I do go out like at least probably 2 times a month.
Such great music in Austin.
It is.
Yeah. And I have a feeling, my only experience is during South by. I have a feeling I should go there when the tourists are not in town. Normally.
Yeah, you should come in the October, November. It's beautiful weather.
Okay.
People play outside.
Deal. And then I can go play Chicken Poop Bingo at Ginny's Little Longhorn.
Yeah, and if you're there, you'll be near my neck of the woods, so you can stop on by.
Really? That's your neighborhood bar?
It's not my neighborhood bar.
Hey, it's okay. There's no shame in that. Mary Jo Foley, our host on Windows Weekly, has a neighborhood bar, Rattle and Hum. Of course, she lives in Manhattan. But
it's a little different. My neighborhood bar would be the Dry Creek Saloon, which is up on 222.
I like that. When you lived in Petaluma, what was your neighborhood bar, Mike Elgan?
It was my kitchen, actually.
you had some good stuff there. I remember that. Yes.
Yeah. No, there's actually a new place. After Petaluma, I moved to Cotati, which is an even smaller town north of Petaluma. Right. And I used to go. There's a burger place there. I don't recall what it was, but it was
I know
a
what
great
you're talking
place.
About. Yeah.
Yeah. They have outdoor fire, and you sit around the fire. It's one of those kind of places. That was a great place to hang out and drink good beer.
Come back. We've always got a spot for you. Just come back any old time you want.
I will do.
You're on the road. Are you going to stay in L.A. for a while, or what are your plans?
No, I'm going to be back and forth between L.A. and the Bay Area over the next couple of weeks, and then we're going to New York, and then we are going to France. We're going to live in the south of France.
Oh, God, I hate you. I just hate you.
Wow.
It's worth all the contempt that people feel for me.
God, that's my dream right there. Yeah. Lisa and I talk about that all the time.
Yeah, it's really awesome.
Tuscany
and
or the south of France, either one or both.
We lived there we lived in Tuscany before as well. That's a must do. Hey, so if you don't mind, Leo, I got a couple of things. I've got a tool and also a tip. And the tool, I don't know how much you've talked about motion stills.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so one of my favorite things to do is to explore the ultimate mobile computing experience by combining Google stuff and Apple stuff. And I really think that oftentimes you get the best of both worlds with these. And this is a perfect example. Motion Stills is an app created by Google that uses the iPhone's live photos feature. So live photos, of course, if you leave the default on and have live photos go, you just take a picture, but it actually takes a little video, which you can, very short, that you can see and hear by pressing and holding, or there's certain circumstances where you can actually use this live video. You can use it for the wallpaper and stuff. So Motion Stills actually adds googly goodness to the live photos. It will stabilize them so that if they're, tend to be very unstable, it'll stabilize them and also allow you to very instantly create a GIF and use that as a GIF anywhere else.
It's so weird that Apple didn't do this. It's their own format.
Exactly. I'm sure they'll come out later with these features. But what's great about it, what I love, so first of all, if you're using this, you do have an iPhone and you do use live photos, make sure you go in, and the default is medium quality, which I never get. Throw it on high quality and and there's also an option to get rid of the watermark. It'll put its own Motion Stills logo
that
on.
That logo is weird. I want to get rid of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's ugly. And so make sure you do those two things. And then what you do is, just go. What I love about it is the fact that it creates these videos or GIFs by default. So you just take pictures and forget all about Motion Stills. And then you're like, oh yeah, Motion Stills. And you go into the app and they're all there already. And they're created instantly on the fly. So you can just go through and say, that didn't work. Oh, look at that one. That was really cool. That really worked. And then you can just post it and share it on Facebook or wherever. Really highly recommended for anybody who uses an iPhone. Okay, so that's my pick of the week. Now, I also like to do a kind of a thing that we need to be reminded of once in a while, which is that there are fantastic full-length movies available for free, easily accessible in various places, especially YouTube. So for people who are younger and hear cultural references that refer to movies, and you may not have ever seen the movie, and where do you see the movie? The video places don't really have it because it's too old or whatever. So you might have heard people refer to Rashomon, which is Japanese.
Oh, amazing movie, yeah.
Or Night of the Living Dead, the original zombie movie, or Sex, Lies, and Videotape, or any of these. The Man with the Movie Camera, a fantastic, very old Russian movie. For anybody who's into cameras and movies and cinematography, you got to see The Man with the Movie Camera. Okay, well, these are all these that I just told you are available full length in good definition on YouTube. And we'll put the links in the show page on twit.tv/twig. And you can just click over and watch these full-length movies. Fantastic idea. But it's more the whole idea. You can also subscribe to channels on YouTube like Timeless Classic Movie. And there are a bunch of others that just have full-length movies, and you can always go and see what people are talking about when they make these cultural references. Related to that, we've probably all heard about a documentary, very long documentary, multiple hours long, called O.J. Made in America, about O.J. Simpson. And this is, critics are just loving this documentary. It's about O.J. Simpson's childhood in San Francisco and going to USC and all that stuff. And a lot of interest has been regenerated by the O.J. Simpson trial series that came out recently.
Yeah.
But ESPN is the filmmaker behind this.
It's one of the 30 on 30s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can watch the whole thing, all 7-9 hours, whatever it is, on the ESPN site as of today. And simply go to espn.go.com and then watch ESPN, and then that's it. And on the right, you'll see all of the episodes of this OJ Made in America series. And again, I haven't seen it yet personally. I'm going to go see it over the next few days, but critics say this is the most amazing documentary in a long time.
Yeah, well, good. You gave me something to watch tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All night.
A 7-hour documentary.
I didn't realize it was that long.
Yeah.
I thought it might be 30 minutes given the name. Oh well. Thank you, Mike Elgan. It's really great to have you. At some point, I would love to talk. We didn't even really talk about it. about Apple's catch-up attempts with Photos, Apple Photos, to catch up with Google Photos.
Yeah.
If they can do it on device and without revealing stuff, that might be an interesting alternative to Google Photos. Seems like they're doing a lot of the same things.
It might be, but I got to say, regardless of what personal information is collected or whatever, Google Photos is the most underappreciated,
amazing,
fantastic site and service out there. I get so much out of it.
You know what? If you have an iPhone, you can use both. That's the beauty part.
Yep.
Couple of tips from me. One, you can now use your Facebook Messenger as your SMS program on Android. Facebook has restored that feature, and it makes a pretty good text messaging service. So one of the nice things about Android is that you can choose what launcher you want to use. You could choose what your default email program is, and you could choose your default text message program. You can, of course, use Google Hangouts or the messages program that came with your Android phone, but you might want to think about using Facebook Messages, all of those rich messages features that Apple showed, and they still work with SMS, and you could send messages to phone numbers as well as to other Facebook users and internet users. So I've replaced my little Hangouts icon in the bottom of the screen with the Facebook Messenger icon. It works quite well. And then finally, for you, this is an interesting intersection of sets. If you are in the set of Harry Potter fans and the set of command line bash shell users, that's probably a pretty narrow slice, you will be interested in these Harry Potter aliases. From now on, instead of typing wget, you can use Axio. If you'd like to remove all files, Avacadabra. Imperio is sudo. Prior Incantato will give you the history. Stupefy will sleep your machine. Wingardium Leviosa will move files around. Turn the sound off with Sonorous. Turn it back on with Quietus. Yes, many of the best Harry Potter spells now usable on the bash command line, whether you're using Windows 10, Macintosh, or a Linux box.
Okay, I want that as an Echo SDK, so you can actually control your blinds.
Oh.
See, this is when I got back from Harry Potter World. I wanted to use my wand to control parts of my house.
You could do that.
With the Echo, you totally could get there and be like,
I'll work on that just for you. I've been wanting an Echo skill. Would want an excuse to write an Echo skill. That would be a good one.
And the best of all, the neighbors' kids can shout commands at your Echo from outside and open and close the blinds.
They say, expecto patronum, and you hear cow sounds. Or, it'll be awesome. I will work on that just for you.
I don't have that automation, I got to say.
What is your spirit animal? I'll have some questions for you so that we can customize it just for Stacey Higginbotham. Find more of Stacey at StaceyOnIoT.com. She's Giga Stacey on the Twitter. And don't forget her great podcast with Kevin Toffel, all about the Internet of Things. You can find that at Stacey on IoT as well. Thank you, Stacey. Great to have you. Nice to see you here. And, of course, Mike Elgan, the peripatetic Mike Elgan, on the road again. But, we've survived the Skype issues, and it was great to have you and your insights, as always. Elgan.com. You can follow him on Google+. And don't forget, becomingnomad.com, the blog of his travels around the world. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
And please give Kevin and Nadia my congratulations. You know what?
I certainly will. They're reproducing, and I couldn't be more happy.
This will be your first grandson?
That's right. That's right. I'm too young to be a grandparent. Let's just face it. But I've already been grandfathered by AT&T, so this is nothing new.
You're grandfathered in.
That's
Congratulations to you and Amira, then, I guess, as well.
Thank you so much.
That's great.
Thank you.
We will be back here next week, and so will Jeff Jarvis. He's traveling a lot. He tweeted his regrets at not being here. He said, Stacey, he's sorry. He's going to miss you, and he wishes he could do Twig, but he has once again hit the road for travels. He says as soon as classes end, he's got to go out and start giving lectures. But it's my understanding he will be back for the show next week. We miss you, Jeff. Also, a side note, kind of a little bit of a sad note, of course, this show, longtime host Gina Trapani left to pursue ThinkUp.com, her startup with Anil Dash. Sad to say, Anil announced today that they are shutting down ThinkUp on July 18th. If you want to find out about refunds if you paid for the service, I loved the service. It was a great service for getting insights into your social accounts, including Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. But unfortunately, according to Anil, changes to the API and requirements on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter made it just impossible for them to stay in business and to continue. So they're shutting ThinkUp down, and we really will miss it because it was a very useful tool. Gina is gainfully employed, fear not, as is Anil. But ThinkUp as a service, it will go down on July 18th. Thanks, everybody, for being here. We do Twig every Wednesday, 1:30 Pacific, 4:30 Eastern Time, 20:30 UTC. Hope you'll tune in live at live.twit.tv or twit.tv/live, your choice. If you can't make it live, of course, you can always get it on demand. twit.tv/twig or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for joining us. I'll see you next time on This Week in Google. Bye-bye.